back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I'm joined by first-time filmmaker McClain Lindquist. McClain, how you doing today, man?
Great. Thanks for having me on.
No, this is totally awesome. So the way that McClain and I connected, his image of the classic Poe story, Edgar Allan Poe story, The Telltale Heart, will be released this autumn. And obviously, as a fan myself, we found each other through Instagram, and I'm so excited about it. But you guys don't have to take my word for it because I have the trailer right down here in the description. So make sure you're checking out the trailer so you guys see what's going on. A little bit, like I said, this is your image. This is what you're doing. So I'd like to get your thoughts on it. What can you tell us a little bit about The Telltale Heart, your vision of and it's a short film. What can you tell us about your vision of it?
Yeah, it's a short film and it's a short story. I think it's Poe's best short story. So I did that. And cinematically, it's really difficult to approach because the narrator, the unreliable narrator, admits that he did the deed right at the beginning of the story. So it's a murder mystery that's already solved. But then if you do a non-linear type of, French New Wave kind of edit, you can really open up all kinds of, cool stuff cinematically, which we did. So we kind of tell the story backwards. And we stayed really true to Poe's words. My brother did the dialogue, and it sounds like Poe wrote it. And Sonny Grimsley kind of played it as if he were Poe as the narrator, which he did a great job. But yeah, just the vision was I wanted a really intense, modern, gory, scary thriller version of the Telltale Heart that a new generation could see and appreciate that. So it was made with, an audience in mind. I made the movie for myself, but I know the audience that was going to receive it, and it was made for them, and it works in that way. And so it's very Italian stylistically, and you can see our influences pretty heavily there. Some of it's homage, and some of it's we're just straight lifting stuff. So,
right.
But it's got a Evil Dead 2 kind of vibe, and Jacob's Ladder, and just a number of films. But it's a very visual movie, even though there's a lot of narration. So it was a balance, but we're really happy with it. We set out foolishly to make the definitive version, and we just might have. So we're happy with it.
I can't wait. I can say honestly, I haven't seen this yet, guys, but I'm so excited to check it out. And upon its release, you guys don't have to wait for me to promote it, because not only do I have the trailer here in the description, but I got all the links right down here in the description for all the social media. So you guys can follow the social media links right down here in the description and follow along with what they're doing. We're hoping for a release this autumn, so that way you guys can follow along and you guys can check it out, because I know murder mysteries are always great, and I'm so excited for you, like you say, and doing the story a little bit backwards, making it a little more fun that way. I'm very excited about this, man. This is something I'm very stoked about. When you agreed to come on, I was very excited to have you.
Cool. Well, thank you, Ken. Yeah, it's awesome. Poe's, he's popular for a reason, because he's great. He's one of the greatest American writers, and his stories, he has his own vernacular and his own writing style, but his stories are just incredible. And movies are stories, good movies are good stories. So the two go hand in hand. And most people that enjoy Poe already, enjoy things that are a bit more macabre or on the darker side, or at least can appreciate that. So you don't kind of have to deal with a lot of the bias that you would deal with if you just told someone it's a horror movie, because then instantly that takes people's, minds to mostly negative places. Unfortunately, this is a horror movie, though. It's a psychological thriller. It was literally the first psychological thriller ever written. So it is that. And obviously, there's elements of that, like heavy, especially visually, which we try to convey. But the story and Poe are just so core to so many people that enjoy, scary things. So it's good to share that with the world.
Yeah, and I can't wait for you guys to do so, because I'm going to be one of the first people to watch it. I promise you that, because I'm very, very excited to check it out. I don't know if you can tell us or not, because I know you're doing the edits right now, but do you have a gauge on how long the film will actually be?
It's 22 minutes.
Okay.
That's perfect. With credits and everything. We have the theme song, which there's a music video out now. on all the social media sites. But yeah, 22 minutes with the end credits, which is also a little mini movie unto itself. And that's a shout out to Joel Petrie from Parking Garage, our editors who forced me to put that in there, and it was definitely the right call. So thank you.
Awesome, man. No, I can't wait to see it. I'm super excited, man. This is something that's going to be really cool. Now, when it comes to release, before we get to the reason why we're here, how are you going to be releasing this?
Right now, you can actually purchase it on VHS. We have a small run. We did 100 hand signed. And it's in the festival run now as well. So we have a number of festivals coming up. We are going to be physically there in Albuquerque next month, August 26th to the 28th at Minefield Film Festival in Albuquerque. But if you go to our website, telltalemovie.com, you can find a link to all the film festivals. Some of them are $5 and you can watch our movie, and also, hundreds of others. Some of them are $20. Maybe some will be close to you that you can come physically see as well. But we still plan on a streaming release eventually. We'll have a premiere here in Ogden, Utah, hopefully in October, which would be apropos.
Right.
But yeah, COVID is still a thing. We're still dealing with that. So all of this was supposed to be happening last year. So,
right.
But yeah, we hope that it's to the general public here around Halloween. So
cool. And what a perfect time to have it out there.
Yeah, right. You can do it Christmas like Halloween in the movie, but
so we know what you got going on in the future now with your first feature film out there. But I do want to go back to the past now for a little bit, my friend. And I want to talk about what got you started in the horror genre. The first horror movie you watched, and your first horror movie was
The Howling, Joe Dante.
Yeah.
So you can blame Joe Dante for everything. He's a big influence. I love his movie.
Yeah, The Howling. It's a movie that doesn't get talked about enough, but it's a fun movie to watch. A lot of heartbreak in this movie, a lot of sadness, this has a little bit of everything to it. It's a dark movie. Do you remember how old you were the first time you watched it?
So it was 81 and it was on TV shortly thereafter. So I would have been 5 years old, I think, about that. Yeah, about 5 years old. I obviously was too young to be watching that movie, a hard R movie. I snuck in to my parents' room along the bed and I watched it from there. My mom didn't know I was there. She was reading. It was just on the TV. And then it got to the barn scene where they trap him inside and set the barn on fire. And that just wigged me out. So I must have screamed, I think. And she caught me and, got me back off to bed. But I snuck back out and saw the ending as well. So I was hooked. Especially with werewolves. And I saw American Werewolf in London a couple years later with my cousin, Matt Elgren. I was obviously too young there as well. But
that's the day is still my favorite werewolf movie, American Werewolf in London, I think, and it's in my top 3 darkest endings of all time for a film.
It's flawless. I like John Landis's movies. Not a big fan of him, but that's a perfect movie. I mean, that's the best werewolf movie. That's in my opinion.
Well, you got you got The Howling, and you got Silver Bullet. Those are my top 3 when it comes to werewolf. Ginger Snaps is up there too.
Yeah, it goes on. There's a lot of good werewolf movies. I would love to do a werewolf movie, obviously. So, yeah, but The Howling, I'm a werewolf guy because of The Howling, and then also connecting Dee Wallace later with E.T., which became one of my favorite movies, which is a really dark, kind of scary movie too. A lot of kids are scared by E.T. And the second one was going to be horror. Steven Spielberg wanted to do a sequel to E.T. and it was going to be a straight up horror kind of side note. But yeah, seeing her.
That would have been awesome.
Right. Yeah, that'd be cool. Sign me up. But seeing Dee, in that role, and then a couple of years later, Cujo, which is her best role. She's a really good actor. But that, I was like, oh, hey, that's Howling. It seemed like real. It was like I was watching a documentary or something. I didn't know what it was, but I was just absolutely fixated on the images on the screen of people that had turned into wolves. So
Right.
Still,
And you mentioned it a little bit before, but I want to get deeper into it now. One question I always ask is, which scene is it that affected you the most? You started to talk about it a little bit, but I want to expand on that a little bit here. So which scene was it that affected you the most from The Howling?
the first time I seen it was the barn. I don't know what it was. It triggered something, whether it was the fire or, the gun and getting blasted, or just strip werewolves, a whole colony of werewolves. That was just mind blowing to me. So,
And you see those werewolves trying to break out. And at this point, you almost feel it's almost pathetic because you see them almost sad looking at that barn and then trying to break out. Like I said, it's sympathetic almost, man.
Yeah, it was there's a lot of texture and layers to that movie that I don't think people pick up on. Some of it's subtle, some of it's not so much, but the whole new age, element of them being in Northern California and this commune and all that was really clever. I don't know who the writer was. I don't know if that was Joe or whoever. I'm not certain who wrote it, but that was slick, and also, very contemporary, obviously. So, but yeah, and then within society, and then also ageism. What is it, the John Carradine character, where he's like this old guy that just wants to, like, no, I know who I am and what my nature is and what I'm supposed to be doing, and this is not it. It's not a barbecue on the beach. So that's cool too, seeing that. And yeah, and then also it would just I remember upon further watching it, like when the whole town, the police and all that are also, it's like, oh, this is terrifying. I mean, what do you do at that point when you're with the police and they're
right? Those are your protectors, man.
Right. So spoilers, but yeah, everybody's werewolves. Yeah, it was just, there was like a ton of iconic scenes within it. When the boyfriend visits the sister out in the woods. As a young man, that was
that
was pretty mind blowing as well. Like, whoa, what is going on with this movie? So, but yeah, the scariest part, I mean, it still gets me, is the barn. So definitely.
It's funny. One scene that always stuck with me, I don't know what it is about this scene, because I haven't seen this movie in years, but I always think of this scene when he's in there with her, and he takes I can't remember if it's a piece of silver out of his head, like he's reaching into his head and he's pulling him out, and then you just see him then do his transformation. Like that scene, I remember it. That scene fucked me up as a kid, man. Just watching him reach into his own head and pull that out was just so gnarly.
Yeah, that actor, I forget his name. He was great in that role. He was great in a lot of 80s roles. He was in a lot of movies, always kind of that character, usually kind of seedy character. But yeah, he was creepy. And then his transformation in the doctor's office or wherever they are.
I'm pretty sure it's I remember seeing it as like a doctor's office. I'll figure it out, but just watching it do that.
Station for all I know, I don't know, but but yeah, that's epic too, because you get to see it. It's not like with the lights on, which made American Werewolf in London incredible. Right. But it's lit, like a horror movie, so they can hide some of that. But all the bladder work and all that was so incredible, and there's a lot of parallel, obviously, there with Rob and Rick. At the same time, and working on both a werewolf movie, and they're both incredible. But I mean, American Werewolf in London is kind of like, if it's not that, it's the thing. That's like the high water mark for practical special effects. I mean, they had to give him an Academy Award. They had to invent it to give it to him for American Werewolf in London. And it does that. That's kind of a shame too, that the Howling gets lost in that. But then they also made multiple Howlings, and I would advise everyone not to watch any of them. They're so weird. And
I've only ever seen the first one and the third one. And I remember I don't remember anything about it, but I remember after watching the third one, I was like, what the hell was that? It was just the whole time I was just like, what is going on here? I just remember being young, and I remember seeing something with a girl in the Howling. I believe she was the main werewolf in Howling 3.
Yeah, and I think Christopher Lee's in that. It's weird, and they're like in outer space or something. It's so bizarre. It's like, is this the Howling? Like the same? There's no continuity between the movies, and they're just not really good movies either. So,
right.
But the Howling 1 is classic. I think it should be one of those movies that carries on to. It was maybe the first movie that had that meta moment as well, when they're watching TV and they're watching The Wolfman with Lon Chaney Jr. and it's the gypsy talking about being cursed or whatever. It's like, oh, they know
That's
it's
nice.
werewolf,
Nice little throw in.
which is cool, you know, because I mean, if something like that happened to any of us, it'd be like, is this a werewolf? You know,
Right.
we would instantly go to this fantastical, nonsensical, you know, thing. But that black and white, which always looks cool. People watching old black and white horror movies on TV just always works in movies for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a really cool moment too. And it's just very of its time. So it's very 1980s, right? I think it's 81. And it's
81.
Just got that whole vibe.
Yeah. And it's funny because we talk about which scene affected you the most, but there's something that happens in this movie that doesn't get talked about a lot that I want to bring up to you after I find out your answer to this. We talked about which one affected you the most, but what would you say your favorite scene from The Howling is?
Whew, favorite scene. Wow. I think probably the transformation, if it is in the doctor's office, is that. But it's hard not to pick the very last scene too, which is incredible, you know, and so fun, and so Joe Dante. But yeah, that transformation when you get to see him, just because I'm such a werewolf junkie, that I would pick that. And when he's like, you know, he's not afraid of who he is, and he like shows himself like, oh no, check this out, this isn't, you know, a bad thing. And that's also cool too, where it's like it wasn't a curse for me. But it's hard not to pick the very last scene, and also the bookend of that, the scene in the porno theater is also that's really intense. Dee's a great actor, and I can't remember that guy's name, but he just kills that part too. But I don't know. What's your favorite, Ken?
I got to bring it up, man. In the newsroom, you know, when you got her turning, because
they turned into a werewolf.
Yeah, something you actually see her emotion, how scared she is, and she looks over and you see that tear coming down, and then it shows everybody else's reactions that they're watching it on TV, like they're watching this happen live, and then it comes back to her, and she's just all woofed out at that point. Like that scene to me will always be my favorite scene of that movie.
Yeah, and there's so much humor there. You know, little kids, you know, close up to the TV, and the news lady turn that crap off. The news lady turned into a werewolf. And, I think they're in a bar, and the barkeep turns off. What are they showing on TV nowadays? Type thing, and it's just like, oh man, there's a lot. There's a lot of social commentary in there, but I don't think Joe gets credit for that either. You know, I think it's just lost in the campiness and the you know, the horror elements, which she's just phenomenal at. But yeah, that's a great scene. I mean, it's super cinematic. Like that could have been in a movie in the 40s, you know, with that ending. The tear is
that seals it, man. Because like you feel that emotion for her, like, oh no, we thought she was gonna make it.
I really liked his creature design for her as well. She was almost like feline. It was like, she almost looked like a bobcat or whatever. But you know, that's awesome. And then, you know, the ending
script on you here a little bit for a second. We talked about the first horror movie you watched and how much it affected you. But now I want to go scream on you here for a second. What's your favorite scary movie? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
All time? Oh, it's so tough. But I've been asked this before, and if I had to boil it down, it's Evil Dead 2. So I just worship at the altar of the Evil Deads and Sam Raimi.
Dude, you can't go wrong with Evil Dead 2. Evil Dead 2 to me is a perfect film. And I've said many times, it's the greatest horror movie sequel ever made. And I don't even know if you want to put it in as a sequel. It's kind of like a soft reboot almost of Evil Dead. But that to me is where the acting is phenomenal. Right there, you really get to see Bruce Campbell more because people often forget that and I'm not meaning this in a negative way, but in Evil Dead, Bruce Campbell was kind of a little bitch. Like,
that's what he's supposed to be, the Scream King, right? So they were going to put the script where he's the whole time, and he's not that guy. But then Ash in Evil Dead 2, he's a badass, right? Which it plays so much better.
His physical comedy, you know, all the stuff he does, physicality.
Yeah, like when his hand gets taken over, that's like some of the best physical work that's been done since Buster Keaton. and that's
Oh,
all just
easy.
Bruce. That's Bruce with some cool camera movement, but that's Bruce. That's incredible that he pulled all of that off. It really is. I know people have talked about it before, but it just should be stated that that performance when he's in the kitchen is modern day, Buster Keaton. He's incredible. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, Evil Dead. If I had to say like the best scary movie of all time, that's The Exorcist. But
I've always said that's the scariest. And the thing about The Exorcist that I think rings true, to me, I don't know, I can't speak for anybody else. I have a 13-year-old son, and then I have 2 little girls. And watching The Exorcist as a child, the fear that I got is so much different than watching The Exorcist as the father of 2 young ladies, the fear that I have. As a child, you're like, fuck that girl, burn the house down and get out of there. But as a dad, you watch it and you're like, oh my God. And then like when she carves help me in her own stomach, so that Reagan is still in there, it's not all Pazuzu. That shit's terrifying and sad, and I think there'll never be another movie as scary as the original Exorcist.
Yeah, they'll never top. I've never thought about that. That's an interesting point though, for sure. But yeah, I don't think it's ever going to be topped. William Friedkin is a master, and that's just that's it. That's the top of the mountain, and that's fine. I just love it. I love everything about it. I think it's a flawless movie.
Which is funny, because I think that's the scariest movie ever made. But I'm one of the minority that I think The Exorcist 3 is better than The Exorcist when it comes to what I love about it. I love The Exorcist 3. I think The Exorcist 2 is one of the worst movies ever made.
Awful.
Ever. I can't stand it. I think it's terrible.
Awful.
Yeah, The Heretic, not a fan. I think it's god awful. But The Exorcist 3 is one of my all-time favorite movies. I think it's fantastic.
So Blatty, he directed that, and he did a really good job. And he had done a few things up to that point, and he wrote the original screenplay for The Exorcist, and then Billy took it from him and did what he did, which was great. But The Exorcist 3 is just phenomenal. George C. Scott is incredible, and it's got probably, if not arguably, the best jump scare ever. With the gardening shears, if that's what they are. Probably not gardening shears, whatever they use in the hospital to decapitate people.
Right. And
that
people
jump scare.
often forget that our dude Charles Lee Ray absolutely kills it in that movie, man.
Yeah, and Father Karras is great, and Brad Dourif as who's he playing?
Yeah, he's the Gemini killer.
Gemini, thank you. I was gonna say Zodiac, but
my dude Charles Lee Ray, Brad Dourif, man. And that performance he gives, like,
awesome.
Oh my God, it's fucking awesome, man. Like, I love it. And there's comedy to that movie too. Like when he's talking to Father Karras, and he's like, "Do you smell me, Father? I haven't had a bath in a week."
There's a ton of humor, especially at the beginning, which is great. I think you should put humor in all movies. I really do. Maybe not.
You need to, especially in hardcore horror movies like that, man. You need to break it up with a little bit of levity, man.
That's why Evil Dead 2 is the greatest.
Evil Dead 2.
It gives you that up and down, and it never takes itself seriously too. It was like, that's groundbreaking in and of itself, that it's like they're in on the joke. Because most people, myself included, I take myself seriously. I take my art seriously. They didn't. And the results speak for themselves. It's incredible. I love it. But yeah, The Exorcist 3, awesome movie. If you haven't seen it, highly suggest that you get it. I would wait until closer to fall. And Patrick Ewing's in it. He's the angel. And
the angel, yes. And what I love about that movie too is one of the scariest things I've ever seen in my life. It scared me so bad as a kid. Is the opening scene when the church doors blow open and the Jesus statue does the blink. Like, that scared the shit out of me as a kid, man. And The Exorcist 3
is awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely more of a supernatural slasher than it is like where The Exorcist is more of like a religious supernatural. This is a religious supernatural slasher, and I grew up as a slasher fan. So we got a little off topic with that, but it's always good.
You can always talk about The Exorcist.
Right. So we always end these, my friend, with the same question. We're going to go back to The Howling, and we're going to rank this 0 to 5 skulls. Now, what we're doing here, we're not ranking it on production, score, cinematography. We're not being film critics here. We're ranking this movie strictly on what it means to you and how much it affected you as a child. So 0 skulls being the worst, 5 being the best. You can use half and quarter skulls. What would your ranking of the Howling be? I figured. Sign it off right there, man.
5. Yeah, I love all
Gotta
those
be.
films. But yeah, especially the Howling. It affected me. That the posters are big, especially. I don't think the younger generation realizes that that's how we picked our movies. House, One Behind You, it was a massive movie to everyone my age, and I don't know if it made a dime, and that image on the cover is incredible. And the Howling has one of the best poster covers ever, with the woman's hand ripping through someone's skin. That's just incredible.
Something you just brought up that I completely agree with, doesn't get talked about enough. I grew up in a video store. My parents owned a video store, and
sweet.
Yeah, movie posters and VHS covers, that was our YouTube. You know, like that's how we decided what we were going to watch. You would walk through, like that's how I watched Fright Night for the first time. Oh, that's so dope.
Fright Night's one of my favorites, all-time favorite movies. Camp, but did it right. And it was like, so like not of that moment. And then it's like quintessential, the 80s horror, flawless movie. Flawless.
I can't tell you how many times I've quoted that movie, whether it be "dinner's in the oven," you know, or like there's just so many quotes from that movie that I've said growing up so many different times. You're so cool, Brewster. You know, like love that movie, man.
And speaking of tapes, I wore mine out. Yeah, that's one of my favorites of all time. It was so like, just like you tapped into kids that liked late night, you know, B movies and, you know, Hammer horror on PBS or whatever. And you'd get these campy hosts, and it was just like, it felt so real, even though it was so campy, but that was what played so well. It had really cool creature effect, especially his girlfriend with the full-on mouth at the end and all that.
Yeah.
Incredible. Love that movie. Love it. And the remake was okay. You know, Colin Farrell's an incredible actor. He was creepy and all that, but it didn't have the camp. So for me, it was tough because it was just like a scary movie, which it was, you know, legit scary. But yeah, that's one. Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah, and that I seen that movie strictly because of the cover. That's what made me want to watch that movie. Yes, man. And even the picture of that.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So man, don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you before we go.
Come on.
Everybody else, thank you so much for watching. As I said at the beginning, click all the links down here in the description. Make sure you're following. Make sure you check out the trailer. And make sure you're following along, so that way when the movie does have a release date, you'll be able to check it out. As always, guys, keep talking horror. Stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.